Ravi d'accueillir aujourd'hui nos amis européens. So this conference will be in English. So I'm very happy to have these rock stars here today in Paris. So let me introduce from the left to the right, Omi, who's a senior technical SEO at Canon Europe. Maria, who's a senior technical SEO at Elevate, which is an award-winning agency from Poland. Gerry, who's the senior technical marketing consultant at Just Eat, and Chris Green, head of search at Strategic. How do you Strategic? Okay. And so I'm very happy because SEO is a big family, and having those guys here help us bridging the gap between the European SEO community. So I'd like you to applaud these guys because they've been coming from very far. Thanks for them. So we're gonna start with. Let me comment on something. I recently met with a lot of SEOs at several conferences, and a lot of people told me that they were really pissed off by some bullshit that some SEOs are repeating again and again, and we are still hearing lots of mistakes about how Google works, and as Google is changing the rules from time to time, my first question for you guys is how can we be sure we don't apply shitty SEO strategy? First question, and I need an answer in just 1 or 2 sentences. How are you updating your SEO firmware so that you're always on top of SEO?
Am I gonna start first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, if you want to know everything about SEO, you just have to go to youtube.com/Sido. Please click like and subscribe. Otherwise, the best way to learn to keep yourself updated and in touch with SEO is to come to conferences like this one or another one, Brighton SEO in the UK.
Maria?
Hi. Maybe I will tell you how we at Elevate organize this process. We have a dedicated person who is responsible for sharing news and checking the softwares, checking everything, checking solutions for us, and he do it. And this is very compressed knowledge, and he is responsible for that.
Okay. So my key one is Twitter. I find that everything I learn at the moment seems to come from Twitter, conversations there, and I'm at that. Again, going to conferences, listening to people, but honestly, following the best people on Twitter, I tend to find that they're sharing the best knowledge, including people like Maria or me and Chris. And
Thanks.
I think staying skeptical and not sort of taking everything for granted and test. And if you can't test it, share. And again, it kind of echoes what Gerry said, is there's a lot of clever people, a lot of clever blogs, that just keep up to date with. And if you can't test it yourself, work with people who can. And just don't jump in straight on a client site or on your own websites until you're sure it's going to work.
Okay, thank you guys. So we're gonna divide this conversation in 3 parts. First one will be all about content. One question is, during the Medic updates, we saw Danny Sullivan reminding us to focus, as always, on content. What techniques are you using to evaluate the quality of your content, and how you lead content efforts regarding how you do that at Canon or as in-house SEOs, and how you do that as agencies for your customers? Starting with you, Maria.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Thank you. Well, I think that we can divide the whole process into two parts. The one part is analyzing the content from users' point of view. So it's something that content marketers can do, read the content and check if it meets users' needs. This part is very, very easy. The second part is more technical, more automated, because we can check uniqueness, the amount of the content, and we can use crawlers, very good tools. And having these two areas in one place, we can see what is our current state. Is my content answering the user's intent, and is my content unique, and there is enough content, etc.
I just wanted to connect the first and the second questions. And the thing with content in the Medic update and Google is that the rules are never the same for different websites. And this is always a bit difficult to understand, you know. I can give you my ideas what I do at Canon, but they may not work for you, for your particular website. So as SEOs, you have to be prepared to basically bite the bullet and experiment. And this is literally my advice. Experiment with your content. There's never one solution, there's never one formula. And one thing I wanted to mention is that for me personally, it's all about revenue. If the content that we are producing doesn't bring any revenue, I think it's simply pointless, you know. And if you've been following me on social media, you'll see that I've deleted quite a lot of pages from quite a lot of websites, because I see a lot of websites with a lot of content that is not bringing traffic or revenue, and I just think you're just simply wasting your crawl budget. This is a bit technical, but from you can divide your content into, is it bringing revenue? No. We have to update it, we have to change it, we have to delete it. That's it. And this was the thing, again, going back to the beginning, you know, the Medic update, yeah? Let's call it the Medic, although it affected many websites, right? The Medic update affected many websites, and suddenly people realize that you can apply the same formula to all websites. And I hope that agencies like Chris agencies understand that, because when you approach your customers, you really have to understand what their niche is, and then only then you can create content for them.
Can I jump in there? That's a good point. I think how you kind of approach this is very much based around how much content you're working with and the purposes of it. I think, you know, Gerry and Naomi in particular, working on very big websites where the content challenge is as much about arranging it, ordering it, structuring it, pruning it, whereas, you know, I work with a lot of smaller businesses, SMEs, and, you know, these websites, 200-300 pages, maybe up to 1,000, but it's kind of a small content problem. And I think, you know, how we approach it when an update comes, when we want to know what's working, is actually just looking around them. So go back to the search results and who else is ranking for those terms that you want to be ranking for, because you can learn a lot about the intent of a key term by what Google is ranking for it. If, you know, you're the only sort of page that's trying to sell for a keyword that everyone else's information or articles, you're trying to push Boulder up a hill. It's making life difficult. So that subjective look at, you know, the SERPs is where we pretty much start. You know, crawling the website, looking at word count, looking at readability, keyword usage, they're all pretty critical, but you can, as SEOs, we can get too into the detail too quickly, and very often you're missing the broader picture.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll never rank for like food-related stuff if all the results are recipe-related stuff. So, you know, exactly that. If you look at the SERPs, you have to compete with the ones that are in the SERPs intent. Is it not? Okay. So you have to basically compete with the ones that are like the same kind of like intent. So recipes, you have to provide a recipe, something like that.
Okay, thanks. I'm just jumping on what you said, homie. You said it's all about revenues. So there's one question which comes to my mind. How do you use business metrics or revenue metrics to lead your SEO campaigns? What's the key metric regarding revenues that you're watching? I mean, is it like average revenue per SEO visit, or what's your thought about that?
Well, particularly, to Canon, it's all about, number of sold cameras, But when I said revenue, I didn't, okay, I meant cameras, I meant products, but you can also assign value to downloads or to clicks or visits of a particular page if you're working on branding, But if you don't have the money in your head, I see a lot of people, companies, agencies building, creating content that is just, how to say, pointless. They give you the content gives you the clicks, and that's it. So if you report on clicks or visits only, this metric is a bit tricky,
Yeah.
In the end of the day, you have to pay the bill, the electricity, and all this stuff,
There's also content that informs, for instance, if people have got a frequently asked question about your service or your product, if they were phoning up, that would cost money for Canon. And so if you've got some information that says this is how you change a setting on a photocopier or a Canon camera, and it stops people calling up, that actually will save a huge amount of money. So there is kind of sometimes a different way of looking at the equation.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something because Gerry mentioned it. Yeah, for companies like Canon, Apple, Just Eat and stuff like that, every time I'll give you some the numbers. Every time somebody calls a company, it costs us €5. So if we have 1 million calls this month, you can do the math, right? So we can build content that answer the question and reduce, it's kind of easy to understand.
I think one of the large factors in this is how close is that content to the transaction. So if you're e-commerce, or how close is it to the contact? And I think having a handle on attribution, or how the different channels kind of play a role in it, and where your content sits sort of towards the funnel, or if it's high up, if someone's in that information stage, if they are, looking to qualify a purchase rather than actually make it, they may not be ready to buy. One or two of my clients, one of them I think is like 1 to 2 years from point of contact to actually buying, which kind of creates a lot of problems in terms of tracking that. But the content that we introduce the brand with is very, very valuable. But if we were to go, who landed on that page, and then the direct relationship with who completed a form or picked up the phone at that point, we can't track that as accurately as we otherwise could. So I think it's understanding how to report the relationship of content to transaction. I think e-commerce is relatively straightforward. It doesn't take as long to make the decision. They don't necessarily need to keep researching it, and then it's just a case of get the people from the content to where they need to be quickly as possible.
I would like to also add that it also depends if you work as an in-house SEO and if you hire an agency. Because if you work as an in-house specialist, you are closer to the whole product, and you have a general view, and you can push the whole machinery to achieve the goal. But if you work as an agency specialist, you set the KPIs with the customer, you agreed on them, and then you try to meet the goals. So these point of views are totally different. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Do you have any story about, this talk is also about how can we do more with less? So do you have any story about like cutting some content that led to an organic traffic boost? Because sometimes too much content might probably hurt some pages. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think the pruning angle, I think, is when you take a look at logs and you see not just how much traffic are those pages getting, but how frequently is Googlebot hitting them, that kind of knowing what isn't valuable to Google as well as the user is quite kind of key. I mean, to come back to your example about pruning content, I mean, one of our clients, start of the year, we cut about 80% of their website, which in this instance was 30 or 40,000 pages, but they were junk. You know, there was no curated content there, and you know, sadly, organic traffic hasn't just shot up since we've done it, but the one thing we've been watching very, very closely is the amount of pages per day that Googlebot's crawling. Its crawl rate is higher. It's the proportion of the site it sees on a daily basis went from, you know, probably only seeing about a fraction of a percent to, you know, they were getting through the entire website in about 2 weeks. So we know that we were showing Google more of what it wanted to see, and also we reduced a bucket load of costs, you know, the databases, the actual server costs. And I think pruning has a lot of benefit, but you've got to be really careful that you're confident that those pages and that content has no value. I've seen the other side where, like, I guess you were speaking earlier, Gerry, about accidental pruning, i.e. when content goes missing, and you can feel that. So I think I'm always reluctant to take away. I think that's a life working with external PR agencies and design companies that don't like content, that just want to take a hatchet to it all, and it can go bad, very bad.
So one quick win that a lot of e-commerce companies don't kind of realize is that not every year, but every season, they have a sale on their website. And every time they have a sale, they create a new one, like autumn sale, winter sale, Christmas 2018 sale. And the problem here is the fact that when you search for brand plus sale, which is often a very common search term, or jumper sale or something like that, you often find that you get a page with no results. And this is kind of really hard work for a user to kind of go, oh, I thought they had a sale on, you know. And so as a result of that, often you kind of lose a lot of traffic that's desperately looking really intently to purchase from you. And so the revenue you get from that is bad. So where possible, look at URLs that you can almost recycle. Look at where opportunities where you can kind of go, if you've got an annual campaign, use the same URLs, use the same content. And it's much easier to SEO something, organically promote something. If you've already promoted it last year and the year before, you can just kind of get some more signals going through to it, like links or promotion, blog post. So you can promote that same piece of content year in, year out if it's an annual repeating thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Some time ago, I took part into a surgery. I think that it's a good word. We removed a few million of pages because the structure was hit by the penalty. And they realized that over the night they lost 90% of organic traffic. So it was a necessary move, and after no indexing, pages with no content, which were duplicated, after 1 or 2 weeks, they went back. So it works, and less pages, more pages doesn't mean that they are better quality and you gain better traffic. So you should focus on important pages in your structure.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something quickly. Very often SEOs forget that video is content as well. It's not just written text. And we don't talk a lot about it, but I'm just going to give you a quick example. When I was working for Hostel World, we were interviewing a lot of famous people around the world, but it didn't work for us simply because when you look at the audience, you know, and this tells you straight away that you really have to understand your audience before you start writing creating content. When we looked at the audience was very young actually. So what we did was very simple. We just asked 50 Cent from the States to talk about us, and suddenly we had a massive, surge in traffic and stuff like that. So first understand who your audience is before you even talk about content.
Do you want to sing something?
No.
Okay. So let's switch to the other part of this conversation about technical SEO. So we've just talked about the use case of printing your website, and recently, I mean, over the last couple of years, regarding orphan pages, you know, pruning your website and take care about your orphan pages have been around for years now. So I believe that's the first time SEOs realize that they could do more with less, because if they have orphan pages, they don't get any popularity, so that Google might not rank them. So from a technical SEO point of view, what's quickest tricks you saw set up or that you set up yourselves, matching that trend of doing more with less, or do you have any specific experience regarding orphan pages and stuff like that?
That's good. I'm just happy that you've mentioned the orphan pages because last year I was working for a company, and I think the research is still on the OnCrow website, right?
Yeah,
even if it's not, even if it's not, it doesn't matter, you know. So basically, when I joined the company, they had. I'll be very quick. When I joined the company, they had 500,000 pages. Using OnCrow, thanks. Using OnCrow and server log analysis, I realized that there was a big, massive number of orphan pages. So I said it then, and I'm gonna say it again. If they're not bringing traffic, just simply delete them. This is my personal advice, you know. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. This is my personal advice. But if you go to I hope it's still there. If you go to the OnCrow website and find my research, you'll see that I deleted 60% of their 60% of their website went to the bin. 60%. So from 500,000 pages, it went almost down to less than 100,000. The numbers are there. I don't remember the exact numbers. But I increased their revenue. Now listen, with 22% in 6 or 7 months, right? Yeah. Yeah. So those are the numbers. They're real numbers. And this is literally do more with less.
Yeah, so this is an example that with just a few lines in your robots.txt, you get 20. I'm not saying that it's only what you made, but sometimes just a quick line on your robots.txt will help your website get pretty much traffic. Any comment on that, Maria? Or
yeah,
no?
yeah.
I know I'm a bit brutal, but
Sorry, François, you mean you just block out the pages without the indexing them?
Yeah, there are many ways to tackle orphan pages, but you know, robots.txt is a massive weapon.
I think the thing, it's do you want to retain any of the value of those pages? Is there no value? If there's literally none, then yeah, you can have the no index line in the robots text file as well as the disallow, which isn't recommended. I think John Mueller said we wouldn't recommend you support that, but that keeps the page out of the index and it stops from crawl budget being used. But if you think there's any latent value in that page, any authority there, that gets lost in that. So I think it depends on the quality of the page and what you're trying to do. Sometimes you might want to 301 them, redirect them, but then others you may just want to kind of cut. If they're really providing no value, they've got no traffic, they're barely being crawled, then you're not going to lose a lot.
Yeah, just a quick comment. You need to analyze a lot of parameters. Are orphan pages having backlinks? Are they receiving traffic? Stuff like that, and then you can decide to redirect them, to put just a no index, or set up a rule to disallow the indexation of those pages. There are many parameters to take into account. Go ahead.
Yeah. As I can see, we are still talking about cutting off the number of pages, and and it really works. I always check keyword cannibalization, because what I'm seeing, so many websites are multiplying the number of pages, targeting very, very, very long tail keywords, and what I'm seeing, it's better to build one landing page containing the proper content, answering these keywords, and it's better to build links to one page rather than to 100 page, and it's under your control because you can see what is displayed in the search results. You know what page user will visit, etc.
Thank you, Maria. Another question. You know, the Pareto laws still applies on many websites, that are generating like 80% of their traffic with only 20% of their pages. And there's a big question popping up recently with the Medic update. That is, what should we do with our inactive pages? And of course, the easy answer is, okay, turn them active. But this is not what I want to hear. What's your? I want to hear your thoughts about and share your approach of how you treat your inactive pages. How do you segment them? How do you treat them? What's your point on that?
It depends on the function of the page almost. You look at the page, you kind of go, is it there because it actually provides some link architecture though? So, I mean, we have pages on some websites which, you know, we don't really want users to go to. They effectively create a HTML sitemap. So if people land on it, it's not a positive experience for them, but we need them there to kind of provide Google with that kind of understanding. But we also have pages which are very much for a long tail, for, you know, long tail queries, bits and pieces, and actually it provides quite a significant chunk of our traffic, but we have to kind of maintain them. But there are pages there where you kind of go, oh, this is bizarre. Why have we got all of these pages hidden away? What created them? How did it create them? There's free options often. Can we kind of reduce it and pull it back up a level? Is there something that we can do to kind of promote these pages? Can we make them better? Is it because they're not being used because they're actually below the quality threshold where Google kind of goes, you know what? I get what you want to do with these pages, but these pages over here are better. And that's kind of like the key things that you need to do.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I think one of the examples I've had with one of my clients, an e-commerce site, they had an entire, I guess almost half of their website was no index, blocked for our robots when we got them on board. Because when they built that section, they didn't have the content to put in there. So in a weird sort of way, they had the right intentions to not say to Google, you know, these 3,000-4,000 pages are, you know, have no content, are poor quality. So they blocked them. They said, don't crawl them. Now, what over the last 18 months we've been doing is putting content back on those pages and starting to expose it sort of bit by bit, because there's still too much in there to be useful. You know, some of it is inactive and is not useful. Some of it has to be there because of the system and how it's built. But it's sort of inch by inch, sort of peeling back that robots block when we're happy that that content on that page will do the job. Now, equally, we could have just decided to do it like that and see what would have happened. But, you know, thinking about crawl budget, thinking about, you know, the site architecture, the internal linking structure, we had to go very slowly. But we are seeing the results. You know, organic traffic growth is still kind of year on year, 80%, 90% up. We're not, you know, actively building links. We're not pushing that hard. We're just improving the quality of those content. So I think for some things, so for parameters, if we've got sorting or filtering options, that's blocked, that's out of the index, that's never coming in the index, that's not useful. So we want that out there. But these category pages that are selling products, or we want to sell products, we're bringing them in. And for the most part as well, is those pages look terrible without content. So we had to, you know, the user experience was a part of it, even if we didn't want Google to see it.
Mm-hmm. I think that one of the most important indicators is traffic. And I know that it's more or less simplified metric, but it will allow us to check what kind of pages that don't deliver traffic, and then we could try to understand why. Maybe there is a problem with this page, so we need to re-optimize it, make it better, and after some time we will see that these pages will go up, and we will gain the traffic. But if I don't see any purpose of this page, just remove it, because it wastes the crawling budget, so there is no sense to keep them.
Yeah, basically what I think, François, is that your rule can actually be applied to keywords. I see a lot of websites, for a lot of websites, 20% of the keywords they're ranking for are the good keywords, and 80% are absolutely useless and pointless. Exactly after the medic update, I had a client coming to me and saying, suddenly our online visibility, dropped. We're losing traffic, business, and stuff like that. And then I checked and I looked at the keywords, and I'm like, yeah, you lost a lot of keywords that were not relevant to your business anyway. So you didn't need these pages. You didn't have to rank for these keywords. They didn't bring any traffic, any revenue. It's just SEO pride. I'm famous.
Thank you. Coming back to what you said, Maria, on keyword cannibalization, I had this chat with some French SEO black hats recently. They were showing me that when 2 pages from your website are competing for the same keyword, their best practice was to rank higher on that particular keyword, to take the weakest pages and redirect it to the best page, and to add the content on that was on the weakest page and add it to the best page and simply redirect. And this is in most cases ending up in better ranking. So do you have some stuff to share about?
Yeah. I think that cleaning the cannibalization is not about merging 2 sites, that I take the content from one page and add to the second page and then redirect it. Yeah, redirect is correct. I think it's correct method, but we should take a look at this content, not only from the point of view of merging it, but improving the whole content so that it will be answering these two pages. But it's not the simple merging, because it's not the value to users. So we need to improve it. But 301 redirect is I think, good approach.
I think to jump in there, I think that where you can, those content on those pages is sort of thematically similar, it's close enough that merging them won't matter. You can do it, and it is the right. I think what I've seen quite a lot over the last few years are when you have 2 pages that are competing that need to be separate, and they have to be there. And I think fixing that is harder, because sometimes you have to do drastic measures and cut sort of keywords out and de-optimize pages. But what usually causes it, as I've found, is poor internal linking. So, if your sort of weaker page, or your page that's deeper in the site has more internal linking, it can start to compete with the parent. And I think if you're content that the internal linking is strong and the content is differentiated enough, that the actual anchor text on the internal linking is correct, and you're not sending confusing signals, in a lot of cases that's enough. I mean, in some it's not, and sometimes I've even canonicaled or no indexed and just kind of kept the other page there because it's useful for users, and then left the main, which is never ideal, because every time someone else looks at it, the instant reaction is, well, why are you no indexing, your main pages that are ranking? And I think sometimes when we say, experiment, I think that's one of the surefire ways of knowing how to kind of fix cannibalization. From my perspective, being client-facing and work with lots of websites, you've got to tell your clients that you're doing it and let them know why you're doing it, what the risk is, and how to do it. But that's where the testing mentality comes from. Make the change, fetch and render request from Google, do an indexing request. Get that up to date as quickly as you can and monitor it. If it doesn't work, you can revert. You can't do a lot of lasting damage as long as you're doing your due diligence first.
Gerry, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Just Eat, we've actually had some experiences where we've had some pages which, were built as part of a project and things like that. We kind of find that the page is no longer being as good as we wanted it to be. It's underperforming and things like that. So we would basically canonicalize it back again, or alternatively no index, exactly that. And we would often find that conversion rate would improve, everything would improve. So it is something where it's just kind of like maintenance. And one of the key things being an in-house SEO is really knowing your site, really knowing where all the different pages are. My boss recently said, wow, you seem to know where all the weird hidden bodies are at Just Eat. And I'm kind of, by the way, we have no hidden bodies. But as in like the projects that kind of didn't quite get finished and things like that. And it's making sure that if it's not been quite finished good enough, it's actually making sure that Google isn't seeing this as well. And if Google has found it, Google's gone crazy with it, then we actually go and make sure it's fully blocked off by, normally I no index it. I've even done that using Google Tag Manager because just to kind of get it out the index before ultimately robots.txt it's out again.
Talking about the rankings in keyword, what's your approach when you're analyzing rankings? Where do you start? Because I believe at Just Eat, for instance, you have millions of keywords that you might rank for. So how do you take that large data set?
Well, what we do is we kind of like take samples. So for instance, we want to rank for all the restaurant names. So we take a large sample of, let's say, 1,000, 2,000 restaurant names. We check those. We take a large sample of areas, and so area plus cuisine, which means like takeaways in Paris or takeaways in, and then towns. We basically have huge sample sizes and then kind of like build almost a dashboard, something off that to kind of give us an idea. And then we can start looking at gaps. We then can look at where, for instance, a competitor is ranking better than us in a particular area, and have a look if this is something that we've just not done our due diligence on. But yeah, it's samples basically, and we can't rank track everything, but we can pull the data out of Google Search Console. And you can track everything. It's just costly, expensive, and you need to get somebody in-house who can build your tools for you.
Yeah, I'm a personal advocate of that. But no, I think when analysing ranking and drops or increases, I think getting to know, sort of touching on what Omi said earlier, which keywords are actually of value. So what's vanity and what's actually traffic driving or revenue driving. And a lot of rank trackers out there have sort of share of voice kind of approximation. So you're not just looking at the raw position or the movement, or worse, the average position, because average position is not very helpful, but an actual measurement of, a drop from position 1 to 2 is going to be quite disastrous in terms of traffic, but from 8 to 9, it's going to be far less just because of click rate drop off on page 1. So I think understanding which are your important key terms and understanding what the share of voice of those terms are, so how much of that potential traffic are you getting at the moment and what's the difference, that gets you to the problem keywords far quicker. But the other one is, I never thought I'd say this, is Google Search Console's sort of search appearance reports are actually really useful for this now in terms of comparing periods of time and what keywords, what pages, traffic, driving difference. Very often I found that gets me to the problem far quicker than I ever thought it would, because I've been a bit of a detractor of Search Console in the past. But yeah, that's my favourite.
Yeah, quick answer. The first thing I always do is check what my competitors are doing. Simply reporting, I've lost a keyword means nothing to me. Because I want to know what whoever took this keyword from me, what they're doing. And why is Google thinking that they're better than me? And very often I find that it's not competitors actually are ranking me or stealing keywords from me, but bloggers and stuff like that. We have to be very careful with this one. Just saying I've lost a keyword means nothing if you don't know who actually took these keywords from you. So the first place I always go is what are my competitors doing, and then I can literally say I've lost it, or okay, I just kind of went down a little bit.
One problem that we are finding is that search results now are way more hyper-local. They're increasingly more personalized. So for instance, if I do a search, Omi does a search, and Chris does a search for the same kind of term, we'll often get very, very different things. And Maria, you probably have a very different shopping habit to the three of us. So, Google's very good at knowing stuff. And if I do a search in London and I do a search in Brighton for a particular brand or something, I'll get very, very different results again. And often the tools that we use will almost get one set of results 1 week, one set of results another week, and if we manually check them, we're going to get a third set of results. So all we are using these tools for is almost like an indication, a trend, rather than an actual exact ranking picture.
Yeah, I would like to add something about revenue. We had a situation when rankings went up, and what was very positive, but the conversion did not. And the problem was that incorrect page was ranking for a given keyword. Instead of a money landing page, blog post was higher in the SERPs. And it was a huge problem because we need to make a decision what to do. Yeah? But we have a system, well, maybe not a system, but the method of tracking when incorrect, maybe not incorrect, but when content page is outranking the money landing page, you can easily do it in Excel spreadsheet after downloading the rankings and matching the directories. So it's good to check from time to time if correct page is ranking for a given keyword.
One tool that we're finding way more useful, Chris and I have been talking about this quite a lot, sorry to interrupt, Data Studio. You can build really, really fantastic reports to kind of like go, I want to look at the particular pages here, I want to look at and segment your site and create really interactive dashboards that will allow you to really drill down onto the information. It's kind of my current personal passion at the moment, Data Studio, which actually sounds quite sad.
Can I just quickly add something? I hope everybody uses Data Studio, right? Because it's a brilliant tool and it's free. Make sure you don't rank for keywords that Google can steal from you. Forget about the competition, right? Make sure you don't rank for keywords that Google can steal from you. You know, because quick example, the weather in Paris. You know, there's no point ranking for this one. Every time I type the weather in Paris, I've got it there on my mobile already. You know, so if you're ranking for keywords that Google can steal from you, you know, you're literally not doing your job for the future, right? Because more and more we see these direct answers on mobile, and now everything is mobile anyway, so ranking for those keywords is just simply pointless.
Okay, thanks. Same question for the usage metrics. Do you care about them? Because we saw Google communicating about that they are taking into account more and more usage metrics from the Panda update, for instance. How are you analyzing those usage metrics like bounce rate or CTR, whatever?
Bounce rate is a fantastic metric as long as it's used correctly. If, for instance, you've got a product page and it's got a high bounce rate, that's probably a problem. If you've got a blog page and it's got a high bounce rate, it could be because the blog page is so good, they got the answer from that page. Basically, you've got to kind of go this back to user intent. If the user intent is that they should have been able to kind of get what they needed from that page, you're going to get a high bounce rate. If it's something where you kind of go, why on earth are all these people coming to this page and not taking the next step? Bounce rate's a terrible metric. You can do way more, of course. You can look at whether or not people are scrolling. You can look at things like whether or not people are interacting, if there's like a video on it. So basically looking at the site and looking at what you need to track is more important than worrying about specific metrics like site bounce rate.
Just to jump in there, when we were coming in from the airport, you're stuck in Parisian traffic, we had quite an impassioned conversation about bounce rate. And I think the large problem there is people not understanding what it actually is, what it means, and how it's significant. So I know, Gerry just said it could just be that someone's found exactly what they've needed to and they've left because they're a happy customer. Or it could be that they've gone to answer the door or feed the cat and not returned within the 30-minute window. So it's just fundamentally understanding that, but also the impact that metric has on others, like time on page. You can't record a time on page if you've bounced, because analytics does not know when that period between those two gaps. And then even average time on page, it's not accurate, because if the session then finishes, they've not seen another hit within 30 minutes, you don't know that they've then been on that next page in the sequence. When we talk about making these metrics more valuable, I think the best way of doing that is Tag Manager. Scroll depth tracking is in there. You can decide whether each of these scroll depths fire an event. That event can be an interaction hit, so it can actually impact your time on page if you want it to be. Tracking how elements are clicked. If you've got single page applications, making sure that Tag Manager is tracking the interactions that people have with it. Just because you haven't gone to a new page doesn't mean you haven't interacted. And I think it's understanding that and tracking it. If all you've done is put Google Analytics on a page and you expect to get loads of value out of your content reports, all you're going to know is what you don't know. But at the end of it, you're going to dig down, you're going to see that there's a problem, and then you're going to know that you need to know more. And I've seen it firsthand of people saying, well, the bounce rate's 90%, but people spent 8 minutes on that page. It's like, well, 10% of people spent that time on page, but you don't know what the rest did, and you're going to make a business decision on that. And it's okay to say, I don't know, this is a flawed stat. Stakeholders don't like hearing that. You're the expert, you're the one that's got to come in and say, no, I know the answer, but making a change like that in ignorance is quite dangerous.
Okay, thanks.
Well, my advice is you should never look at one metric in isolation, right? Bounce rate can be very bad and very wrong, but another advice is, because Gerry mentioned blogs, make sure you've got a call to action on your blog pages. Otherwise, people just come in reading your content and basically going somewhere else to buy the product.
Thank you. So we're gonna, as we're running out of time, we're gonna jump to the offside part of this conversation. Since Penguin, lots of SEOs are what I call desperate link builders, and they tend to do less and less link building. So and during a recent chat with Paul, the guy who had drinks with last night, he told the SEO community that don't do any offsite SEO if you're not good with on-site. So which makes perfect sense, but what is your approach for a brand new website and an old website? Is it a more PR thing now for you guys, or what's your approach?
I wouldn't stop doing off-page work because your on-page website's not quite right. The reason I say that is because your website will never be good enough. It will never be perfect, and it is critical. You do kind of do the PR-driven activity. I've always believed, basically, that the best links are the ones that are kind of like the natural ones. If somebody has a reason to link to you because, for instance, you've given them some reason to, so, and I'm not talking financially here, by the way, just pointing to the Google guy. But basically what I mean is that, if there's a really good reason to link to your site, they will do, naturally. That's how it kind of works. If you've got an interesting video, if you've got an interesting reason, it's something, a resource, something, then, yeah, links will come. But you've also got to kind of go out there and say, hey, have you seen this? This is here. A best example is the fact that I worked on a hotel website once, and they basically would have let you take your bikes into the rooms. And this was unusual, and so we contacted all the tourist information and said, hey, did you know that we do this? And they went, oh, that's fantastic. Or here's all the links.
You comment?
Yeah, jump in. So I think a lot of it is budget driven. I think the big difference between being a large brand with large teams and working with small businesses and finite budgets. I'm not saying you have infinite budgets, because I'm sure you'll disagree, but it's knowing where to kind of portion that. So I think if your technical, your on-page SEO is poor, your content's poor, your errors all over the place, your architecture's wrong, assuming that you can make those changes on that website, the investment there is going to be far more worthwhile than the off-page, certainly in the first instance. So I'd kind of say fix your own stuff while you can. Now I'm lucky that the agency I work on develops 90% of the sites I market for, so I've got FTP access, I've got CMS access. I'm not rubbing this in, guys. I can jump in, I can make those changes. So the technical on-site is never really the problem that we've got. But working with a lot of local businesses, when we've built the website, 20-page WordPress website, it's very solid, functional, it does what we need it to. How do you then go out and show people in that community, in that area, that you're the authority? So we find is, in the UK we have like chambers of commerce, sort of business organisations, not just getting links from there, but having a presence on there, joining these organisations, sponsoring. I guess you'd call it corporate social responsibility or something like that, but small businesses being part of a community, and if you're going to do that, this is going to sound cynical, but get a link out of it. If you've sponsored the football kit of your local team, get a link out of it, do some PR out of it. You are being there in the community, and actually the biggest value you're getting there isn't just the link, it's that people see you, which is, I guess, only at an SEO conference do we have to kind of say that the PR value is pretty good, right? But start there, and that's not necessarily saying spam local directories, because a lot of that's not going to help you, but get out there into the community. And a lot of the time, the best kind of link building tool for that is picking up the phone or meeting other business owners, and building those relationships, which actually events like this are pretty good for as well.
Maria?
Yeah, brand new websites have worse, more difficult situation, and I think that the most important thing is to have a good approach to the results and expectations. So many websites expect, I don't know, ranking boost after gaining 10, 15 strong links, but it doesn't work in that way, because you will not rank from day to day for the keywords like flat for rent, yeah. And we need to be prepared. Small website, brand new website owners need to be prepared that they need to gain the market with small steps, because what I'm seeing that they are not patient, and they start thinking, well, I can buy 100 links and it will give me a boost, because 5 strong links don't work. So it's a trap. So we need to give our clients a good approach, that we need to go step by step with the link building and rankings.
To answer directly your question, build it and they will come is simply not true. You have to get out there and you have to literally ask for the links. If you're not good at PR, now is the time to become a PR. Basically, what I tell people is that you cannot be simply an SEO anymore. You have to know a lot more than just SEO. You have to be good at SEO, of course, technical and content, whatever you want to call it, but you have to combine all the teams in your company, because SEO is literally, should be at the heart of every single company in the world, right? So if you're not a PR, now is the time to improve your PR skills. And I'll just give you a very simple example again. When I was working for Host the World, our performance, online visibility in Asia was very bad, very, very bad. So I just went to the PR and I just said, can you just please ask, give them I think it was actually 10% discount if they put a link on their homepage, and I just emailed all the universities in Asia, literally all of them. It was a spamming job, but anyway. I knew, we gave them the discount, but I knew that college webmasters are lazy. I knew that those links gonna stay there. 3 years later, probably 40% of the links are still there. And you don't want me to tell you what happened with online visibility. It literally skyrocketed. So if you're not a PR, you have to be a PR. Being an SEO is not enough anymore. Simply an SEO. You have to upgrade your skills.
I think just to jump in there, the only thing I will say is all the time I've worked with PRs are often the best people at generating link opportunities that they then miss. And I think, I think the thing that PRs are really good at is picking up the phone and building relationships.
Links. Yeah, very strong links.
Yeah, and which is great, but they're not thinking of that link. They're not thinking of that reference back. They don't know how to have that conversation necessarily.
Exactly why I said that SEO should be involved in PR from now on, because PR content writers, they only think about to make the content appealing, PRs only think about branding. Nobody thinks about SEO. You're the SEO. You should be thinking about PR. You should be thinking about content.
I think
backlinks.
It's how useful are the silos, are these titles? Yeah. I guess, what...
In my opinion, they're not useful anymore.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I said. As SEOs, we have to grow. It's time to grow. It's not enough to say, oh, my website is technically sound good, it's okay, Build it and they'll come. It simply doesn't work anymore.
Thank you. As we're running out of time, and I would like the audience to ask you some questions. Last question. What field of SEO are you considering a real game changer for the next 12 months? Where will you focus your action?
I think for me, it's not necessarily the change in search. It's kind of more how we are practicing it. And I think when I said before about stay skeptical, test, and coming back to the do more with less side of things, is one of the biggest reasons that changes don't get implemented is because of pipelines, is because of development roadblocks. You know, I've said that we develop a lot of the websites we build on, but even we have pipelines and budget restraints. And I think it's proving concepts. What happens if we had a new content block here? What happens if we had a new linking module here? It's finding ways of doing that, getting around kind of development. And I think Google Tag Manager, Google's ability to handle JavaScript, those two things, you could also look at optimizing, other tools, lets us be far more nimble and agile with changes. You know, you don't have to get one of your developers to sit and rebuild something and deploy it to the live site after QAing it. You can deploy a hotfix, test it, does it work, doesn't it work, and then roll and try again. And I think we don't really know the impact of a lot of changes, that voice search is going to have, answers, and there's an awful lot of pessimism, but all I know is that I need to stay agile. Got many clients, we all work with many websites, and it's reacting to changes and actually how quickly can you test and then mobilize what it is you're doing.
Yeah, further to that, actually, something that both Omi and Chris have said is that you should actually not just trust your rank tracking tools, but actually do the searches yourself and have a look at what the results are. Increasingly, it's no longer 10 blue links. You find there's carousels, there's images, there's things which are going to increase click-throughs for your competitors. Have a look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and see if you can do the same thing. Google's not 10 blue links. Sometimes it will kind of turn around and give you no links. Sometimes it will give you a page of images. Figure out what it is that they're doing and go from there. It's this answer engine optimization thing that's coming through now.
Yeah, I think that this year would go to technical SEO, and it's not because this is my part, but I think that web development is too fast, and Google can deal with some problems, and we need to do a lot of experiments to see how something works, and sometimes provide some hints even to Google that this doesn't work or this needs improvements.
I really don't know, to be honest, with you, François.
Thank you.
The easier wait, the easy answer will be machine learning and voice search. How many of you here do machine learning and voice search SEO? Nobody, right? Yeah, exactly. The thing is that it's really pissing me off that most of the time we talk about machine learning, artificial intelligence, voice search, and so on, but a lot of websites actually don't cover the basics, the absolute minimum basics, the minimum requirement to rank in the SERPs, So my advice is, I don't know where SEO going to be in 12 months, even tomorrow, maybe Gerry going to tell us later. All I know is that you have to make sure that you cover the basics. Grow your website at least once a month. At least once a month. Look at your Google Analytics, use Google Data Studio, and this is enough, Whatever happens in the future, if you've got the basics in place, you're going to be okay.
Okay, thank you guys. We're going to end on that. For the audience, please follow those four guys. You have their Twitter handle there. Thanks a lot. I think we can applause.